Hey there, Christopher Schlegel here. In this video, I'm going to talk about arpeggios. Arpeggio is an Italian term, and it means broken chord, or like a harp. Essentially, the idea is that rather than play all of the notes of a chord at once, you break them apart, you rhythmically separate them in time so that you hear them happen one at a time. The arpeggios can be finger-picked, you can or you can use them in more of a shreddy way, like I was doing part of that. That kind of thing. But there are also other applications that get overlooked sometimes that are actually ways of playing chords as arpeggios. So I want to talk about arpeggios. I'm going to talk about how to harmonize a scale to find different ways to use them across the fretboard, and then give you a couple of practical applications of them, right? There were several times recently that I was having discussions with guitar playing friends at a couple of music stores, on the Guitar Tricks forum where I teach. They were asking about how to use arpeggios. How do you arpeggiate all the way through a scale? What does it mean to harmonize a scale? How could you use arpeggios doing that? So I thought I would throw this little video together to address some of those, okay? So to begin with, what we're going to do is we're going to take an A major scale, okay, and we're going to harmonize it. So first of all, A major, I'm going to start here. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. There's your A major scale. If you harmonize that, of course you get an A major chord on 1, the 2, B minor chord, the 3, C sharp minor, the 4 is major, D major, 5 is major, E major, the 6 is minor again, your F sharp minor, and then the G sharp, the 7 is of course diminished, and I'm just going to use a normal diminished triad. We're not talking about diminished 7th chords, we're not talking about half diminished, minor 7, flat 5 diminished, because we're not doing 7 chords, we're only doing 1, 3, 5, okay? So I'm going to show you how to deal with just the normal diminished chord, as well as talk about a different way to use the leading tone to harmonize later on, okay? But when you harmonize it and play it as an arpeggio all the way across the guitar, what you can do is start with this bar chord shape, this E-styled bar chord. And essentially what I'm going to do is just add the 1 to the 3 here, okay? So I'm going to go 1, 3, 5 on the low strings, and then I'm going to take the rest of it and I'm going to go 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, then all the way back down. 1, 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1. So it's based on a bar chord shape, but I throw the 3 here and the 3 here in, and that allows me to get the full 1, 3, 5 all the way across, right? Take that idea and then go up the neck with it, okay? So there's the 1 chord. The 2 chord, the B minor looks like this. Here's your B minor chord, your bar chord. Well, if we put the 3 here, and the 3 here because it's a minor chord. What that looks like is 1, 3, 5, and then 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, and then back down 1, 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1. And then up to the C sharp, the 3 chord. It's the same shape as B minor, but up here, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, back down. The 4 chord. D, I'm going to play it here instead of here. I'm going to play it over here so we can continue this 6-string attack, right? 1, 3, 5, major chord. 1, 3, 5, 1, then back down. Up to the E chord, the 5 chord. Same shape as the major. Okay, then up to the 6, the F sharp minor. That's a minor chord, so it's 1, 3, 5, then 1, 3, 5, 1, 3. Back down. Okay, then when you get to diminished, the G sharp, remember, we've got 1, flat 3, or minor 3, and flat 5. So 1, 3, 5, and then you jump over to 1, 3, 5, and then 1, 3, back down. Okay, and that brings you back to your A major all the way up here, and then all the way up where it gets really tight up there. Not a lot of room to negotiate. Okay, there you go. That's it. That's how to harmonize the A major scale. Okay, now what can you do with that, right? I tend to think of the guitar in different registers, different sounds, like bass and middle and high, right? Just kind of like a general EQ thing. So when I look at the guitar and I see all those arpeggios, I think, for example, I could do a really neat low register or bass lines with just this part down here, this 1, 3, and 5. Okay, it's something you hear in a lot of bass lines, boom, 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 or bass, boom, 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 whatever, that kind of thing. But you can make country lines, you can make pop lines, you can make neat blues or rhythm and blues type lines by going 1 and then slide from 2 to 3 and then up to 5 and then back down to 3, 1. Notice I changed it to the minor to get to the B minor. All the way up to the 5 and then. So there's a way of using an arpeggio, okay, but to play a neat little rhythmic line, okay, rather than having just your power chord down here going. Well, that sounds neat, propulsive, but another way of approaching that musically, that same chord progression, is to break it into little arpeggios. So there's a neat little way of using an arpeggio idea on the lower register. Now when you get into the middle register, some of the middle strings, same idea, especially if you have another guitar or instrument fleshing things out, you know, then I might just lay back with some middle register arpeggios, play just this part of the chord, play A, so you get this A, then I had a B minor, and then I went up to E, and then an A. Okay, guitar sounds great in that register. You can get a lot of neat motion too if you know how to use your arpeggios. Right, so that rather than just hear, you can. Right, get some neat melodic voices happening and flesh things out, make them sound a little bit more musical. Right. That brings me to another point about what I just did there with this A and this E and this D and A. Sometimes I've noticed that the G sharp, the leading tone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I talked about how it's diminished up here, right? Because if you harmonize the scale, you get a diminished chord, right? And I don't see that used a lot in pop or rock or blues. Sometimes in jazz and classical and different things, you know, you'll hear diminished chords, but very rarely do you hear something like this in rock type stuff. More often what you hear is the G sharp being used as the third of the 5 chord, the E, right? So that rather than hear this and then this, now you usually hear this, A, and then when the G sharp is used, it's the third of E. So you get this, and then the third, so you have the E. That's where the G sharp usually comes in. So a lot of times when I tell students to practice like harmonies going through, I would say, don't even worry about the diminished chord at first. Just make it another 5 chord. It sounds great going to the 1. So for example, going back to the earlier idea, what I had of using different registers. Let's do the higher register, okay? So up here, you got an A chord, and then a B chord, and then a C sharp chord, C sharp minor. That's the 3, then the 4 is D, and then the E, 5 chord, then F sharp minor. Then, instead of using this diminished chord, which sounds really, you know, Baroque, use this, an E chord. 5 chord, right, based on the G sharp. So you get this. Sounds neat, right? Because again, you don't hear this a lot in rock. No, you hear this. Right, that sort of thing. So it winds up being a little neat voice leading thing to use the G sharp as part of the 5 chord instead of worrying about diminished or 7 diminished or any of that stuff. Because that's a completely different can of worms that we're not getting into in this lesson here, okay? So what I just did there was a way to use the upper register, the high strings, to do arpeggios. You can do it in kind of an R&B or a calypso way. You can drag your pick across there. You can also use it just visually as blues type stuff, because a lot of blues players put the minor third and the major third. They go. And basically, you're just using that shape. It's an arpeggio. Right? You get this, got a little bend and a little bluesy ornamentations, but essentially it's just arpeggiation. It's really what you're doing. I like the doo-wop things where they always have those little... palm muting thing where you get this boom, ding, it sounds really neat. I like that. It's a cool sound, right? So there's some ways to do arpeggiations, to visualize arpeggios. You use arpeggios just as a visual guide on the neck. Then you can go low register. It can be all about the bass, right? Or you can use in the middle register to get some neat voices happening. You can... voices to move like that, or you can go at the top register and then cha-cha-cha, right? Or anything you want to do with them, right? So it's neat to be able to use them as a visual guide and as a way to do something practical with them, to make music with them. Not just in shred instrumental guitar, but in real world situations as well, right? Okay, also minor chords. I want to throw this in here at the end. Let's harmonize the minor scale. Let's say A minor, that's 1. B is your diminished right away. And we're not doing half diminished or any of that. We're just straight diminished, right? 1, minor 3, and flat 5. Then the 3 is major, C major chord. 4 is minor, 5 is minor. And then 6, the flat 6, since we're harmonizing a minor scale, is major. And then flat 7 is major, and then back to 1 for the minor. So it winds up being the same thing, though. We go 1 and harmonize 1, 3, and then we're going to use that shape 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, and then back down, and then 2. You can do the diminished right, if you want, right? Or you can make it part of a 5 chord. 3 is a major chord. 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, back down. 4, minor. And then 5's minor in the natural minor scale. You can make it major if you want to do harmonic minor. Right. And then the 7, the flat, or flat 6, right, is F, major. 7, flat 7. G is a major chord, then you're back to the minor chord again. Or you're kind of running out of real estate there for your minor chord up there, right? Okay. Same ideas apply, right? You can use low register ideas. Like that, right? The middle register sounds great for using those little arpeggios of inversions going. All right, or you can use the upper ones. And then a minor cha-cha-cha, something like that, right? So there you go. There's a bunch of different ways of looking at arpeggios and using them, being able to visualize them across the fretboard and be able to apply them in real-world musical contexts, right? I know I went really fast through that, but there's all kinds of resources out there. If that was a little bit too fast, then I teach a lot of that stuff. If you're a subscriber at Guitar Tricks, go look at all my arpeggios and triads and inversions lessons to go through that basic music theory stuff. Or if you're not a Guitar Tricks, then go down to your local music store and sign up for lessons and get a teacher and say, hey, explain this stuff to me. You know, I heard about arpeggios and triads and inversions, and I want to play some music on my guitar with them, right? So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to see you in a future blog or video lesson. I'm going to go play my guitar now. I'm going to use some arpeggios.